The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning. You got your coffee?
I do have my coffee. I've got my green mug, my green. I felt like I needed to be balanced after last week's episode.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was pink. The time to flip it to the other side. So,
well, it's lovely. I just love your necklace.
Oh, thank you. This is actually a Michael Michaud necklace. I was given this by a friend. It's the Monstera plant. So we've got the which colors. I don't know.
We're continuing our themes.
I'm going to continue. Look, I'm having a wickedly good Christmas this year, so I'm just going to keep saying, go see this movie. Okay. We'll leave that in the previous episode.
So after the last episode, I was talking to my husband about it, and he said that he knows people, and he said the reviews are amazing. People are like, the movie's incredible. So maybe we'll have to go see it.
We'll see. I wait your review of this.
Okay. Well, now I definitely have to go see it.
We'll do a whole episode where we're just talking about this film, spoilers intact. So
we'll do one. If people like it, or if not, we'll just do it.
Yeah, we'll just have fun with that.
But I'm very excited for our first letter today.
Oh yeah. 3 letters today, first letter today. So let's get some of the administrative stuff out of the way. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast. We really appreciate our whole audience here. Many people that listen on YouTube just listen and are not subscribed. We appreciate your views, but we would love if you would take the time to click that little either like button and subscribe on the little bell. Still trying to probably figure out that thing on the screen. Please like, share, and subscribe if you can. And if you're listening to the audio only, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the other channels, please leave a review if you have the time to do so. We appreciate that. And check out all the updates at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. With that out of the way, 3 letters today, Jamie. And this first one is a letter that, we look forward to hearing these letters because they are not as frequent that they appear. And we hinted at it in the last episode. This was in the same envelope that she sent out to her parents. Sweetie had written a letter, and then she said Lew's going to write as well, and he does. So the first letter today is we have been able to, it did survive, the letter from Lew to Chester. Highly unusual.
526 East 1st, Hutchinson, Kansas, November 8, 1944. Dear Papa, the box of tools came yesterday, and I was not only surprised but very pleased. They certainly do add to the few I already have, but I'm pretty handicapped now since I have so little time to do much work of any kind, and there are no facilities here for a workshop of any kind. I've taken over a small cupboard in the kitchen, and what few things I do have to be done in a very cramped and awkward way. There's nothing you could have selected as a Christmas present for me that I could appreciate more, and I can join you in your opinion of useless Christmas gifts. The reversible screwdriver, the scribers, and the saw, I would certainly have chosen myself. If I'd had the saw about 2 weeks ago, I could have salvaged a good lens, but since I didn't, I had to hack away at it, and I'm not too proud of it now.
Now I want to pause here because for people that have been listening to every episode of the Love Sweetie podcast, what was it that Chester was requesting of his sons from the front? If they could find for him, which is Frank and Bob. He's on the look for lenses. He's been asking, and who is the one that's actively working while working at the base to find lenses for Chester? It's Lew. So I don't know if Bob or Frank got lenses back to their father. We haven't heard that story yet, but we know at least the son-in-law is working on it. So there was a request from Chester to Lew as well to say, by the way, if you find any lenses out there and some photographic equipment. Yeah, so.
I flattened my nose on a window pane uptown, wishing for a set of the wrenches. So you see, it was a very welcome gift. Even the cigar box will come in handy in keeping the small things together and well taken care of, since I've just put the things I have into a drawer. I would really like to have the wooden toolbox. I'd like to know your plan for making it so I can say how big it should be. I don't really have so many tools, by no means as many as I'd like to have or hope to have a little later on. If it is to be a good permanent toolbox, I'd want to make it bigger to take care of the tools I expect to accumulate in the future. If you'll write and say how it is to be made, I'll be able to tell you more about it. I so appreciate the tools and your thought in giving them to me. I just wish we had some idea of what you'd like so we could be equally as pleased.
He'd like lenses and more photographic equipment.
And didn't he say too he was making the request for clock parts? If anybody,
clock parts, right? What was it? There was a specific part. Now I feel bad that I actually don't remember. Someone in the comments is gonna be like, "It was this. How could you not remember?" Yeah. So, but Chester asked for a lot of things. I don't think he's the easiest to shop for. So, like, you almost have to scrounge for stuff that Chester is looking for. He wants you to really discover these things.
Well, and he likes practical
he likes
goods,
practical.
too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it'd have to be something that, it's not something like a sweater or a tie. He'd want,
right.
And he and Lew obviously have a good relationship, and he knows Lew, and he knows what Lew would appreciate and like, and so that's very lovely to see.
Yep. And then the toolbox, the wooden toolbox. So Chester's making something with his carpentry skills. Hey, Chester, what about those chairs? We're just gonna keep reminding Chester, your wife is owed some chairs.
She needs some chairs.
I need some chairs.
Maybe then you can sit down and then she can talk to you.
Right.
And you can, have a conversation with her. No, all right, anyway.
Nope, toolbox time. So he's making a toolbox.
He's making a toolbox, and he's doing something for Lew. Yeah. And he's trying to prep Lew for like later on.
Yeah.
I mean, right now Lew and Sweetie are in. He might be deployed. He might not. They don't know. And Chester's over here like, well, you're going to need a toolbox at some point in time.
Yes.
This is the important thing.
Definitely. Yeah. And plus he would Lew's a mechanic. Now, I cannot tell you just how many spare parts and tools are in the basement. We've been talking all this time about, I go up to the attic and I find things that I didn't know were there. And I've been really trying to just empty the attic so I'm not being surprised by things. One of the things that was located, I mean, this is too big to put on screen, is his service trunk. It has his name on the top with some blankets inside and things like that. But that was one of the last items up there. So I don't think I'm going to be surprised by too many things. But in the basement.
Oh my, there's a basement.
Oh my goodness. Lew was really someone that loved tools. And the guys that whenever they take something apart and there's a screw and there's pieces they can salvage and then they sort them all, sort of obsessively. And then they have these little containers. There's so many spare parts in the basement that he has sorted of these are all these lengths of screws and all of these little pieces and door hinges, all sorts of stuff that I can't say are sentimental value, but just the collection in whole. You saw how much he was salvaging. So this is where we start to see the indication that he's learned so much from being a mechanic on the base. And he probably already had some knowledge. And now he's got this cheerleader in Chester about building things. That this is going to be a big thing in the future. So I'll have to take a picture of what's in the basement. It's too much to haul up. And I'm not obsessive about, here's his screwdriver. No. So, here's all of these screws. But it is impressive how much he did collect over time and what still remains of that. And I don't think my dad ever went. My dad's the same way. So there's just a lot of tools. Anyway, but yeah.
I'm anxious to see the steam engine you're building for Chris, and I want to take a good look at the lathe now that you've got it running, and I'd like to tell me something about the lens I've acquired. I've heard that we're going to have 3 days Christmas leave sometime between November 15th and January 15th. If that's true, I think we'll make a quick trip up to see you all then. Love, Lew.
Yeah. And for those audio listeners,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to point this out. He signs it Jalu,
Yeah.
which
But in
is
his own way. He doesn't use a J, he uses a G.
he uses a G. They
Yeah.
use a G, Jalu,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jalu. But and he signs that, which is his nickname that Chester's given him.
Yeah.
So it's like a little nod to their close relationship.
Yeah. It's a very interesting relationship, certainly, because we have to remember, I don't think Lew graduated from high school. And here's the PhD doctor, but they're connecting over this shared love of just how things work, in the background. So that's really fascinating. Also, the lathe. We do know that we have the lathe in our collection. Chester is going to get the lathe to Lew. So we do have that one in particular, and I'll have to get my father to bring it up. We'll get a picture of that on the website. I don't know if this particular toolbox survived, or if it's just one among many, and we can't tell
Just one of them.
which one is the one that Chester made. But the lathe was given, and that was pretty common for Chester, especially with Frank and with Bob, that he would help his sons if he had extra tools. And we hear about the lens again. But it's great just hearing from Lew and seeing that relationship between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into Sweetie in a happy mood.
Oh, so Sweetie's happy.
Sweetie. Yep. Writing to Jeanne. And she's, again, going to be planning something here.
Hutchinson, Kansas, November 10th, 1944. Dear Jeanne, oh yes, we have good news tonight. And what could make my birthday any nicer than a visit from you? In fact, we're so pleased that Lew's going to ask for a day off. He's going to ask for Saturday off, since Sunday is his day off, making 2 consecutive days. We can't be sure he'll get it, but it is worth a try anyway. Be sure you write and tell us what train you're coming on, and I'm sure we'll be right there on time. I'll be glad to share birthdays with you. It will be lots more fun. Oh, excuse me. My pen is temperamental.
Yeah. So, and here's for our audio listeners, the people who are watching along on YouTube can see this. On the letter, when she's handwriting it, the pen starts to have a problem with the ink, and there's an ink blot that appears on the screen, and she inscribes around it, my pen is temperamental. She's upset at the pen. So I'm going to try to put the image of this just on the website so the audio listeners can see this little moment. But she even takes the time to explain away why
she has a little ink blot.
Her. Yeah. So
as for the surprise, Lew won't disappoint you on the cigarettes, and confidentially, I think the 3rd class rate is better than the 2nd as far as being shipped to sea is concerned. There are advantages to the 3rd class rate, too. The letter from Lew's mom this morning said his father was still better. We were going to go down and make a record to send him, but the studio was such a poor makeshift one that we just looked but didn't try it. I wish we had now, and I may try talking Lew into going back. The folks have a phonograph, and it would be something novel and perhaps entertaining.
yeah, this is an interesting aspect, right?
Yeah, this is something that is popular, or like somewhat popular back then, where they would have recording studios and they could make records to send to each other.
So you could hear them. Yeah, this is something that I've hoped somewhere in the attic or somewhere in a collection I could find just one recording of either the two of them singing or something like that. I have yet to find anything like it, and I've just been hoping that like someday something like this will surface, because then we can hear Lew's voice and we can hear Sweetie's voice, but we get to hear them together. But it's really interesting that they're going to attempt this. So back in the 40s, this was a thing. You go to a recording studio and you're going to have like the little record that you could send as a special, and then people had phonographs so they could listen to it, to hear it recorded back. And outside of this letter, I hadn't really heard about this being a thing. This is something that's pretty much lost to time. But we could just call people long distance, and they could call too. We're still in the age of the telephone here, but long distance, it's expensive, and they wanted to share that little moment. So if I ever do find one of these recordings, I will be happy to share it with everybody so we can actually hear them. But I've yet to find this. Of course, in this letter, she's saying, it just wasn't going to work, so they proceeded without. But there is mention that they're thinking about doing this in future letters.
Lew's day off came on election day. We went to a movie and came home to listen to the returns. My ballot was an absentee version, and yards of red tape made it quite a problem. But I did the little job and got it off within the allotted time, and naturally did my bit for the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to stop here because when I saw this word naturally, I looked at, was like, I've never heard that. I'm gonna look it up, and then I realized that perhaps that what she is doing is spelling out how you would say that with her Iowan accent.
Yeah, she's writing the phonetic version.
Yeah, she's writing phonetically, which is adorable.
Yeah,
and adds a little character to her letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then this, of course, we're still in 1944, so these are the election results coming back in for Roosevelt with Harry Truman as that VP pick going up against Dewey. And I think it was 400 plus electoral college votes versus 80 or 90 for Dewey. This was a complete landslide for Roosevelt. It's middle of the war with a well-liked president at the time. Yeah, that was the end of that. But if she hadn't gotten through the red tape, she would have heard about it from Chester.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Your birthday gifts sound nice, but now I ask you, or maybe tell you, what kind of a birthday is it that you spend alone? No birthday at all. I'm sure glad you're coming down to re-celebrate it. Would I be too inquisitive to ask why you wrote to Bill a note for the flowers? I have wondered about that, but I guess maybe you can wait and tell us when you get here, for I'm sure you'd tell in detail, more than you'd write. Mom wrote that Maida was coming to visit about Thanksgiving time and suggested that I come home for it, but I don't believe I will. I'll wait to see about Lew's Christmas leave. Well, I guess like you, I'll not write, but wait till you get here, and then I'll talk your arm off, and be very glad to do it too. If you can think of anything you'd like to have to eat, or something you want, write it on the card, and I'll try to get it. You may have to cook it. We're sure glad you're coming, and Friday certainly can't come too soon. Love, Sweetie and Lew.
Yeah.
So Jeanne is gonna go visit.
She's gonna go visit.
Oh, goodness.
Goodness, yeah. And that's what makes Sweetie so happy in this letter. We can re-celebrate birthdays. It's going to be really great. I'll pick up whatever you want to eat. Since she's being also self-defeating here, that she's criticizing her own ability to cook. So she's like, Jeanne, you can handle that. We're going to have a super, super awesome, totally awesome, great time. It's going to be fantastic. And everybody's...
And I love it. She's so happy, but it also kind of makes me sad because she's like, we'll just talk about it when you get here. I'm like, no, write it in a letter.
Yeah.
What are you guys talking about? I need to know.
What is this note with Bill? Bill's still being mentioned here. I think we've probably gotten past the point because we haven't heard in any letters that she's saying, that decision isn't being talked about. So I think the decision point probably passed. But there still seems to be a relationship here between Jeanne and Bill Gruning. But yeah, so excited, so psyched. Jeanne's coming to visit. And she's also saying, you know what? Mom invited me to go home for Lacona for Thanksgiving. But you know what? You're coming down here, and then the Christmas leave is coming up, so I think I can time this better, Maybe she's deciding not to go to Lacona because, well, if Jeanne's coming, and then they can do this, and then there's Christmas. Everything's going to be super great. Everything's going to be going really, really well, and Sweetie should be totally happy from this point on.
Yeah.
On to the next letter.
Hutchinson, Kansas, November 17th. 1944. Dear Jeanne, just plain words can't express fully how disappointed we were that you'd decided not to come. Here's something that I don't quite understand, so I'm going to get it off my chest once and for all. We wrote and told the folks that Lew might get 3 days off for Christmas, but we did not know for sure. Such a supposition was based on what they did last year. I thought I made that plain to them in several previous letters. You decided to come down here to see us. They wrote that you would be spending too much money to make the trip, so you write to say you're not coming. However, before we get your letter canceling the visit, we get one from the folks saying that a trip up there for the two of us would be quite expensive, as they said it. It would make an expensive whistle, and so not to come. Now it seems that they've got a good number of new plans in. They're short of men, and the possible leave becomes probable dream. We've also had word that Lew's dad isn't so well, and if it becomes bad enough, the Red Cross will notify him, and he'll probably have to come on short notice. That means any money will have to be saved for an emergency, so in all likelihood, we won't come there. We've been cheated all around. And while I'm making you feel badly, we decided since you were sick with a stiff neck and stayed in bed for your birthday, we'd plan a celebration for the three of us, starting with a fried chicken dinner, the specially ordered birthday cake, happy birthday Jeanne, and some ice cream. Black market, it's so hard to get. Then we'd give you your gift and then take you uptown to see Since You Went Away with Joseph Cotton, Claudette Colbert, Monty Woolley, Robert Walker, Shirley Temple, Jennifer Jones, and goodness knows who all. Well, we canceled the cake, the chicken, and the ice cream, and today we managed to send your gift to you, but we could only include 2 of the packs of cigarettes Lew has been hoarding for you. We'll mail the rest when we find a suitable mailing box. You should get the box on Monday, I guess, and we hope you will be pleased. Do you know how such a situation could have occurred? Why should the folks tell you not to come here and write and tell us a trip there would be too expensive? It rubbed both Lew and me the wrong way and only heightened our disappointment. I kept hoping you'd change your mind and decide to come, but your gift came in this afternoon mail, so I guess that clinches the deal. I've put the gift up, but I'm sure you're well acquainted with my impatient nature. Remember the other birthdays and Christmases we shared, and you'll know what I mean. The Navy is evidently dishing out some spoiled meat to the swabbies, 'cause my Lewis came home Wednesday night real sick, and from 1 to 4:30 we conducted our own private marathon from the bed to the bathroom. He had a chill or two after he got back to bed, and he still shows the effects of it, but I believe he'll be all right. They knew they'd fed them spoiled food, for an officer made an announcement to the men, saying if they felt sick to dash for a raw egg, or else just gag themselves. Well, I've griped and probably made you unhappy too, but darn it, I feel so bad I had to spread a little grief. Thank you for whatever the box may contain, and write to tell us if you get the box from us, and since we're so slow to send it, maybe we could wish again a belated happy birthday. Love, the L.S. Grahams. Please do send a list of the Christmas gifts you bought. We'd appreciate it soon, for we're trying to get ours taken care of. Also, any suggestions or ideas appreciated.
She signed it, the L.S. Grahams.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
This is just all that hype, all that hoping. She's been in Kansas now for what? 4 months. Only the 2 of them. Off by herself, thinking Jeanne's gonna come. Plans changing based on recommendations from other people. And when it rains, it pours.
Oh my gosh, this was so sad.
So sad, yeah.
I mean, there was the part where she's like upset with her parents.
Mm-hmm.
She's sad that Jeanne isn't coming to visit. And then Lew, poor Lew, and a number of other people, it sounds like, were suffering from food poison.
Food poisoning, it would sound like, at the base. Rotten food. He gets sick. We also get, there's just so many things to break down this letter. And one of the things is, Jamie and I were talking about it, we didn't want to stop in the middle of what Sweetie was saying here in this one.
No.
Because there's a flow, there's a specific narrative flow to this letter in particular. But just going back through the points of this here. She underlines the word for the people on the audio only. We wrote and told the folks that Lew might get 3 days off for Christmas. So this was never a guarantee. Right? Because nothing's ever really a guarantee. It's still wartime. As much as we go through these letters, we remember he's at the base. Like, World War II is still really going.
Active. Yes.
Super active. We're at the end of 1944 now. It does kind of go into that mentality of winter quarters again, right? The campaigns in the spring, not going on as much now. But in the modern era, that's a lot less so. There's still this worry, and there's still that huge looming threat of a land invasion of Japan. We've talked about that before as well.
Yes.
At this point in history, if I recall correctly, Harry Truman still doesn't even know about what's being worked on, with regards to that. Roosevelt is still alive at this point. So as far as everybody's concerned, there's still the threat from Japan. And the only way to deal with that threat from Japan, as far as everyone knows at this point, is a land invasion. Because we keep hearing that they keep recruiting. So we get that little note that comes in the middle of this letter. Where does he write it here? Now it seems that they've got a good number of new plans in. And the reference here is to the military. That's the Navy. They're short of men, right? We knew the waves were coming in. And the possible leave becomes probable dream. And that little phrase is just like dashing the hopes there. Something's going on with the military at the end of the year here. Then, on top of this as well, we hear that his dad's not doing well. We hear about Samuel Graham is again sick. And we know it's serious because now they're talking about the Red Cross having to notify him. And basically when she writes, the Red Cross will notify him and he'll probably have to come on short notice, which means he's going to have to take an emergency trip if something happens back to Philadelphia. So there's this whole question and we're in this holiday time, right? Everything's always heightened around the holidays. You want to be around family in good circumstances. There's the war. He might not get the leave. His father seems to be extremely sick. We know it's been up and down, but now we're talking about the Red Cross saying emergency trip might be necessary. And that's actually a callback to a previous episode that we had with Chester. Chester had written a letter about the guy who was at the front who might have to come home because of the family member being sick. And I think we talked about that then. In the wartime, we're always thinking about the people at the front, but we've also got the family members of the people at the front where things are going on. So as much as losing Kansas, he's not overseas at this point. There's still that they're going to call and he might be called to Philadelphia. And it's November 17th. It's right before Thanksgiving. So it's just that busy, busy time. Everything's just coming so that, rain and pouring at the same time. And then all the plans that she put together.
And like you said, that honestly, the hardest thing I think is now they're starting to do other things at the base where he might be called.
Yeah.
So that's always in the back of her mind is like, cause he's avoided it for this long.
Yeah.
But now, and especially like if there's a problem with his father,
at the same
then
time,
he's definitely not getting sent overseas.
Right.
But can you imagine living in that time when it's just like literally from minute to minute, he could be called up at any point.
Really, that land invasion of Japan could start at any moment. Short of men, because how many men are starting to really now pour? Now there's that foothold in Europe, right? We're now 5 months past D-Day, right? That strangling of the German forces on the two fronts is becoming a very, very big reality, right? And if anybody's seen Band of Brothers, my goodness, what an amazing series Band of Brothers was. You see that push as the foothold into France is moving, as push on the German the German Western Front. And you got the Soviets coming from the East. We were already talking, we're past some of the bigger battles over there. They're going to be pushing in. So it's getting to a high, but we have to remember land invasion of Japan. It's so easy for us to slip into the mentality of like, well, they're just going to drop the bomb. So that's going to be the end of it. Nobody knows about that, though, except for the people working on that project. Truman doesn't know about that at that point. Only Roosevelt and the select others would know about that. And Roosevelt is not doing well. So as far as the general public is concerned, it's like, okay, well, we might be winding down what's going on. There's sort of a sense of an inevitability of overwhelming force moving into Germany. But then there's still this whole Japan issue, the shortage of men and the waves. We talked about the women's reserves for the Navy. What a great name. I still think that's a great name.
That's a good name.
For the ocean, the waves. Still, waves in Kansas, still no ocean in the Midwest. The birthday plans, the black market ice cream.
Like she was gonna go all out.
She was gonna go all out. Yeah.
And too, I think she's a little upset You can tell like that her parents meddled in these plans.
Something really disrupted.
Mm.
Yeah. Like there was some sort of it doesn't seem like it was a miscommunication.
Yeah.
Right? It seems like there was something intentional. Like if we work this a certain way, it's better for her that she stays there and doesn't spend money because of what's going on. Was there some overthinking on the parents' parts, and now she's really furious.
And that's funny because they both of them, were of the mentality that Jeanne was to make her own decision and blah 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 and stuff. And it's like, but when it comes to decisions about you guys traveling, I think no, you're going to stay home. So it's like, So I can understand her frustration with that.
Also, she's the youngest child. She's still in the parents' mentality. This is the baby, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like, are you treating Sweetie like a kid?
Yep.
Right now, and I think,
well, they are.
Yeah,
they are. We know that. You know that. I know that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this all around. Honestly, I just wanted her to get it out. I just wanted her to get it all out, and and I feel really bad for her. And that's actually it's very sad too, because that's how we have to end this episode today.
I know, we have to end it on that note. Now she does say, please send a list of the Christmas gifts you'd bought, because they're trying to figure out theirs. Because the one thing they can do is they can go shopping at that dime store in town.
Yeah.
They still want to participate with Christmas. It ends on a slightly lighter note, which is like, we're still going to do Christmas. It's still coming up. And they're figuring that one out. And they don't want to double up on things that have already been purchased and things like that at the time.
Yeah. But she signed it, the LS Grams, and I was just like, she is not in a happy place right now.
Yeah. And there's just this lingering question as well. What's going on with Samuel? So we are, and I'll give a little teaser out here, we are going to get to hear from Samuel before the end of the year. Well, this year in 2024 and the end of that year in 1944. And it's amazing how we're, it's not going to be always that the letters are going to line up so nicely with the current calendar, right? We've already been through a Christmas in the summer from 43. We were talking about Christmas 43, and it was July, August when we were going through those episodes. This one, for the people that were hoping, like, are we going to get Christmas at Christmas? Is it going to sort of like the screensaver, right? Where the little thing hit the corner of the box so perfectly well. Yes, we are. We are going to get Christmas at Christmas time. So for people that are listening and are planning ahead for the couple of episodes that are going to follow here, since now this episode's coming out in December 22nd, that episode, right before Christmas 2024, we're going to get Christmas 1944. We're going to get the storyline for what happens. And speaking of just talking about some things for the podcast for the future, there are a lot of plans for releasing, at least in my mind, I think it is right to release some of the text in printed form, especially the war years. We can see we're in 44, we'll be heading into 1945 soon. And I'm looking at putting together some sort of a volume with some of the pictures. Not with absolutely everything, maybe with a couple little notes that, we didn't go over in the podcast, but just so people can hold in their hands some of the text, right, from Sweetie. So we're going to be working on that over the coming months. So if people are wondering, is she going to publish any of these letters, so we can just kind of have that little reference with some of these unusual quotes from the 40s, just the sayings on one scale, and the context of the sayings is very, very interesting. But there's some plans that are being worked on with that. Yeah. And that's pretty much everything for this week. We know it's going to be a busy holiday season. Everybody stay calm and collected, right, as we go through December here. But we're going into December with Sweetie's story as well for 44. So with that, hopefully things will turn around. Hopefully turn around for Sweetie here.
Tune in next week. We'll find out.
But things are a little blue at the moment for her. And with that, see you next week.